A Toronto police officer is recovering in hospital after he was shot while investigating an alleged robbery. The incident took place yesterday at an apartment complex in Toronto. CBC's Greg Ross has the latest for us.
Travis, we've learned that this was a plainclothes police officer who was here yesterday to investigate a vehicle believed to be involved in a string of robberies. Now, that vehicle was parked somewhere here in this apartment complex behind me. We're told that several officers waited for the people connected to that vehicle to return for it, and that's when shots were fired. According to police, they apprehended 3 suspects in this apartment complex yesterday evening. One of them pulled out a gun.
During that interaction, one of the suspects shot our officer in the abdomen, and then another officer returned fire.
Toronto Police Association President John Reid says the police officer who was injured in the shooting was rushed to hospital where he remains in stable condition.
It could have been very, very serious. I expect him to make a full recovery, but he's doing well and surrounded by family at this time.
3 suspects fled the scene but were later apprehended by police. CBC News has confirmed that the man who opened fire on police was later arrested at Michael Garron Hospital. Police have identified him as 21-year-old Tibor Organa of Toronto. He's been charged with multiple offenses, including attempted murder. It turns out this wasn't his first brush with the law.
This individual was actually, in fact, on bail as well.
In September of last year, Organa was accused of assault with a weapon, among other things. He is still awaiting trial on those charges.
When we start dealing with individuals that are either repeat offenders or violent criminal offenders, we have to start looking at reassessing how we do that and how bail is or is not granted.
Police have been standing guard outside of a unit on the 7th floor of this building all day. Multiple residents have told us they're not sure if Organa lives there, but they see him here often. This resident didn't want to appear on camera out of fear for his safety.
Him and his girlfriend or partner, or whatever the case may be, like kind of cluttery stuff on the balcony, and like throughout the building, just being disorderly.
There were 2 other suspects who were arrested in connection with this shooting here yesterday. 22-year-old Amanda Odette was charged with conspiracy to commit an indictable offense. There was also a 15-year-old charged with 3 counts of robbery and 3 counts of conspiracy to commit an indictable offense. As for the officer who was shot here, we've learned that he is 29 years old with 5 years on the job. Travis?
CBC's Greg Ross in Toronto. Thanks, Greg. Well, Ontario's Premier Doug Ford is reacting to the shooting. In a tweet, he writes, "I'm relieved to hear that the Toronto police officer who was shot in the line of duty yesterday is being well cared for, and I'm praying for his swift and full recovery. But the guy accused in this shooting should never have been out on bail. Enough is enough. The federal government needs to do its job and fix our broken bail system so we can keep dangerous criminals behind bars and off our streets." As these calls grow, my next guest says that these comments are misplaced. Sonia Schickman is a partner at Bratinsky Schickman Criminal Lawyer. She joins me tonight from Toronto. Sonia, thanks for being here.
Hi, Travis.
Let me get your thoughts on what the Premier said there, that really this comes down to the bail system that we have.
Of course, it comes down to the bail system. The bail system is a fundamental part of the criminal justice system. Anytime an accused person is charged with a criminal offense, he or she is presumed innocent. Part of the presumption of innocence, so those words are not just empty, is security that a person does not necessarily await trial in jail, but rather gets to be presumed innocent and not be incarcerated until he or she is actually convicted. So the bail system is a way to protect every citizen's presumption of innocence, which is a fundamental right that every citizen enjoys in a democratic society. Now, the presumption of innocence and the bail system tries to pursue 2 goals. It tries to protect the presumption of innocence, and it tries to protect the public. So it is a balance that needs to be stricken, and there is a complicated set of laws. And while this incident is very unfortunate, and I too join our Premier in hopes that the officer recovers and the officer as well, making comments about an entire overhaul of a broken system because of one incident is completely misplaced and should not, the panic in people and our society should not be risen on one example.
But this is not the only example, though. I mean, the Premier has previously pointed to other examples, and it's not just him calling for this. There, are folks related to the police. The Toronto Police Association says that there should be bail reforms. In this individual's case, September last year, he was charged with assault with a weapon, and then out on bail and shoots at a police officer. So, I guess what is that balance then, in your opinion?
So, I mean, it's not just my opinion. Perhaps we should give the public some education as to how a bail hearing, a person's bail release is decided. It is a hearing that takes place where both the Crown and the defense make submissions. The goal, there's three ways, the three bail system, bail principles, but let's concentrate on one that's really in question here. How to stop a person from committing further offenses on bail. And so there's a system, there's a test that the criminal code sets out. And in summary, it basically says that we can only detain people in such a circumstance where there's evidence that there is a substantial likelihood that that person will commit further offenses that will endanger the public, okay? So the idea is we're not going to throw away the key and lock up people just because there's a possibility of them committing an offense, because that possibility will be engaged in every individual who is charged with a criminal offense. And I'm sure while we look at this situation, it causes us some concern. But I think people in a free and democratic society would want to sleep safely knowing that if they're accused with a crime, they'll have a chance of bail unless the government can demonstrate on the basis of their background, their criminal history, that there is a substantial likelihood that they will commit further offenses. And even in a situation when there is such a substantial likelihood, bail terms can be crafted that are directed specifically at trying to preclude the possibility of that reoffend. Now, it's not a possibility, it's a substantial likelihood. What does that mean? That means we're not just detaining people because there's a chance they'll commit further offenses. We detain people, that's the balance, if there's evidence of the fact that they're very likely to do so. That's the balance we strike. Now, does that mean that occasionally there will be people who will commit further offenses who are on bail? Yes, that's an unfortunate reality.
And you think it's occasionally?
I think the law will show that it's the largest amount of prison population is serving sentence, is not serving sentence, but awaiting trial. So people, about 80% of the prison population is presumed innocent. They are in jail because bail has been denied. So the system works. I cannot tell you if it's 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, but our system of laws is directed with a very high test, and people are detained every day that we don't hear about or are presumed in.
Well, let me ask you this. So do you support any reforms when it comes to bail, or you think the system is working perfectly right now as it is?
I support a lot of changes, Travis, but they're not the kind of changes you want to talk about today.
Let's talk about them.
The changes, let's talk about it. The biggest problem with our bail system currently is that people who are presumed innocent who come to court can't get a bail hearing on time. The biggest problem is they have to schedule a bail hearing. I fought this in Brampton court successfully, where it took people 3 weeks to get a bail hearing. Well, now there's a protocol that you don't get a bail hearing the same day. That was successful, but the system is still broken. You don't get the bail hearing same day. If the Crown says that your matter is too complicated, you have to schedule a bail hearing. So think about that for a second. You're presumed innocent. There's an allegation against you. You come to court prepared to have a bail hearing, and the court says, either we don't have time to hear whether you should be released on bail or not. That's a fundamental part of our justice system, but we just don't have the resources to hear your bail hearing. That's the reform I advocate for. That's the change that needs to be made. Not a substantive change of trying to detain more people. The test is there. The test is correct. The test sets out various ways for how people can be detained. The test is meaningful. and there are a lot of people who are both detained or are subjected to very significant restrictions on their liberty while presumed innocent and when subsequently being acquitted of the serious charge.
I know that there are a lot of perspectives on this one, and I certainly appreciate you coming on Canada Tonight and giving us your perspective. We'll have this conversation again because I'm sure this issue will come up in the news again. Sonia Schickman, appreciate your time tonight. That is Sonia Schickman, a partner with Bertinsky Schickman Criminal Lawyers, joining us from Toronto.